Welcome back. How you doing today, INFJs and ENFJs and anyone else who tuned in? This wasn't the video I planned on making today, but it's something that's been on my mind, and I kind of collected my thoughts, and I want to put it out there because I haven't seen it spoken about really, and it's something that's very near and dear and important to INFJs and ENFJs. In fact, it's one of our most prized possession. It's something we all look for in a partner, and it's something that's rare in this world, and something that the cost of preserving is a price we'll pay a high cost to, and that's our integrity. For us, integrity is extremely important and something we're usually unwilling to compromise or sell out. I mean, as I was taught as a, kid from my ENFJ grandmother, that there's things in life that can be taken from you. You can lose the love of your life, you can lose your possessions, you can lose your life, but no one can take your integrity. You have to give it away. And to me, my personal definition of integrity is doing the right thing even at your own detriment. So, you know, doing the right thing when it's in your benefit is something that the majority of people will do. A lot of people, even some narcissistic people, they'll do the right thing and help someone so they can be seen doing it, so they can get the praise and the accolades. But they're not there to do the right thing when no one's there to give them praise, when no one sees it, when it goes unnoticed, and more importantly, even rarer, doing the right thing when you're pretty sure or you flat out know that doing the right thing is going to be a detriment to you, either cause conflict in a friendship with letting a friend know about a truth going on, like somebody's infidelity, and I've had to be that friend to tell people of that. Or when somebody's being abused or exploited, in a work setting, and by letting it be known what's going on, the person you're calling out may be connected, and it's going to hurt your career, but deep down, you got to do it. And we know that usually we're the only ones that will. And I want to discuss why that's so important to us. Well, first off, integrity like that is extremely rare today, sadly. I mean, our society as a whole has become more narcissistic. With the neoliberal economics we've been stuck in since the 80s, and that's the majority of the Western world's been stuck in neoliberalism. I mean, especially the United States and Great Britain, we had the whole Reagan Thatcher revolution, and then the left wing party sold out with the whole Clinton Blair thing, and it's kind of been a disaster ever since. And that's going to be a video in itself, but it's things like unions have become a lot fewer. The social safety net's been reduced to a hammock, so people aren't pulling together as groups as much as they did in the past, and it's more like that every man for himself feeling, and that's changed integrity in that sense, because cutthroat, stab your friend in your back to crawl over him and get to where you want to go. And also, the boomers' influence and their culture of materialism, with their slogans like "whoever dies with the most toys wins." Again, that's the culture that many of us on this channel, which I'm assuming are Gen Xers or millennials, grew up with from our boomer parents. So why is it important to us as INFJs and ENFJs? Well, we're intuitive, so we can sense, how inverted intuition works, putting patterns together subconsciously, and we're kind of able to see through people and read their mannerisms, find tells if they're lying. Well, it's important to us because authenticity is very important to us. We want people to be authentic all the time. Like, we don't like to be around people that are fake, people that are putting on a facade. We're our authentic selves all the time, even when that authentic self doesn't fit in with the majority of the crowd, or even questions, the beliefs of the majority of the crowd. If said beliefs are um, double standards or bigotous, sexist, or exploit other people, we won't go along with it just because it's the status quo. I mean, as I've mentioned before, we are the least likely to be to have blind allegiance to any status quo as idealists, we see the world like as it should be, not, is what it is. Like, and we don't like platitudes at all either. At least I don't. And most of the ENFJs I know don't either. Don't know that many INFJs, not many of us. But to that point of authenticity, we we do our best to put our most genuine self out there as best we can, and by that I mean as best as we can explain it. Our two types are the most misunderstood of all the types. We're good at understanding each other though, so we got that, but altogether we're at best 3.5% of the population. So yeah. And and especially in romantic relationships or close friends, and this is a little more on the INFJ side because we have a little more issues with trust and opening up to people initially. I mean, we trust and love very deeply once we open up. It's that getting to their point, but we don't want to be blindsided by somebody who's playing an act. I mean, I remember back in college and stuff. My more regular, so to say, normie friends are always like, "Oh, dude, just like pretend to be this kind of guy and all that." And I'm like, "But I can't." It's like, "Oh, it's easy." I'm like, my line was always like, "This is the only person I know how to be. I'm not a trained actor, so I have no idea how to be somebody else. I didn't go to drama school, so how the hell would I do that?" And it's not. Some people, are good liars and some aren't, and INFJs and ENFJs aren't, but we have good integrity for what it's worth in this day and age. It's worth a lot to us. Um, I think it really says something about us as people, and how we are as feelers. Our emotions are extremely, extremely important to us. So, and how does that fit in with integrity and relationships and stuff? Well, it's the emotional connections that are the biggest to us. I mean, emotional connections far outweigh anybody's financial status or you know status like in a group or even like celebrity status. We don't really care about that. In the same respect, we don't really care about somebody's looks as much. It's that emotional bond that we have. Can we trust this person? Does this person understand me? Are they open about talking about their feelings and emotions like we are? Are they authentic people with integrity? That's what's most important. I mean, as an INFJ male, like if there's a girl who's a solid 10, or a girl that I have a deep emotional connection with who understands me, who's a 7, I'm going to take the 7 in that case all the time. I mean, yes, you have to be physically attracted to the person, but it is not the only and certainly not the most important factor. You know what I mean? Just as feelers, just because one potential boyfriend or girlfriend is more physically attractive than the other doesn't mean that that's the one we're going to go for. And sadly, we attract narcissists. We do that, and I've explained it in other videos. We seem to attract a specific type of narcissist, and from what I've seen in my own struggles with narcissists at work, and well, one relationship, well, borderline anyway. She was a borderline, but and especially with ENFJs, especially ENFJ girls in their early to mid 20s. Us as a group, but especially them, seem to attract narcissistic ENTPs. And I'm not saying all ENTPs are narcissistic, but it does seem to be that there's a higher percentage of that personality type is narcissistic compared to the general population. And the type, the ENTPs, smug, arrogant, thinks they're like God's gift to everything they touch, can never admit when they're wrong. They're great liars. I mean, they lie like we can breathe, and they like to exploit people. It's a sport to them. Like, sadly, like if I recall some friends and some acquaintances who told me about stuff like this after the fact, but it seems to be a sport for like middle-aged ENTP men from like 35 to 45 to have a short-term fling with a early 20s to mid 20s ENFJ girl who's hasn't dated much because, and from what I've seen with ENFJ girls and why I wasn't able to ask a lot of the ones I wanted out is it seems to be a common thing among you girls that you meet a guy in college like at 18, 19, and you date him all through college, and a lot of the times you end up marrying the guy at like mid 20s, like 25 through 27. The ones you don't usually end up with a narcissistic ENTP guy at that time. It's weird. And the consensus among my friends was, the guy at first seemed charming and was able to tell you what you wanted to hear. And he thought by his older age that he was like ready for something real, because the majority of the boys your age were just looking to have fun. And INFJs and ENFJs, we don't really do that. It's all or nothing syndrome. We're either in love or we're not. We don't casually date, and sex without an emotional connection sounds terrifying and robotic. And instead of our usual intense, sensual with deep emotional, spiritual, and physical connections, ascending our connection to a higher level. But that's a different video. So then that's a lesson of integrity, because that happens to both men and women. And it's just so happens that I know more ENFJ women than any other subgroup of INFJs and ENFJs. Well, they are the most common of those four groups, but still very rare. But it seems that all of us, whether it's in a relationship, or in my case, it was with a boss when I was right out of college in 2010, 2011. I had an ENTP male supervisor who exploited me and made me work longer hours than he thought he could. Like, I mean, I'm talking like 16, 18-hour days, and without overtime pay and without breaks. And just because I had a position that was, quote, privileged at a top 100 golf club that over 200 people applied for. You learn, just because something's, quote, elite and privileged doesn't give people the right to exploit you, because some people would call it out right away. That's why they try to do it to us. The lesson of, this broader lesson of integrity with the NTPs is that it's how we learn how much we value our integrity. And it's really a lesson to listening to our intuition too, because always in these situations, even if, and in my case, even I didn't really know what intuition was or what an INFJ was, but I would get this something doesn't feel quite right feeling. Like I would be doing something, I'd be strong arming the doing something I knew that, was wrong, that I didn't want to do, like spraying illegal chemicals, mercury-based products that have been banned for, well, 2 decades at that point. And you always get that feeling like, oh, well, it is what it is, and, this is what you signed up for, and stuff like that. And they use those lines because deep down, not only do they know that they're lying, they know they're exploiting you, but it's a sport for them. Like, it's a sport. They get off on making those of us with integrity, INFJs and ENFJs, compromise our moral beliefs, because they are so corrupted that they just want to corrupt everything around them and make it like as jaded and as miserable and narcissistic as them. Like, you often find these same types to be like militant atheists. Like, not only, I mean, I have my issues with organized religion, but these types will be against like any type of spirituality or anything, of that nature at all, because they value, to them, happiness is stuff. Happiness is stuff. Happiness is money. Happiness is things. Happiness is being able to wave in people's faces what I have financially and materialistically. And to them, getting back to the ENTP men, like middle-aged, that go after these, seems to be particularly ENFJ girls, like I said, a few years after college, that, just got out semi-recently of a long relationship. They're a trophy. Like, you're just another possession. He likes to wave, showed his country club friends or whatever. Like, look at, like, look at what I'm sleeping with. Like, look how beautiful and young and sweet she is. And he's probably whispering in his ear how he's able to, let's just say, get you do things in the bedroom that you wouldn't consider doing, but he somehow makes you feel like it's just a privilege to be with him and you should do anything for him. It's really disgusting. It never ends well. A couple of them that I knew got what was coming to them, let's just say. Karma does have a way of eventually working itself out, because those types, integrity like ours does play a part in that, because, they think materialistic things can solve everything. So throw some cash at the problem, and no one will rip off their precious mask or crush their precious facade of that good person they try to put out into their social group. But integrity like ours, well, we can't help ourselves. We'll call them out. And the nice thing about calling people out, and the nice thing about integrity, even that causes you to do the right thing, and even it could be your own detriment. A lot of times there's a chain reaction. There's other people with not quite as strong as integrity as ours, or that strong compulsion to do the right thing always. That when somebody else takes the first step and calls somebody out, whether it's somebody in like a neighborhood or group setting, or at a professional setting, somebody's got to be the first one. Somebody's got to make it okay, make it comfortable for the average person to speak out. I mean, look at the Me Too movement. That started with one person, and look how many women spoke out, and things changed for the better. Not They didn't change enough, but there's change is still being in place, and it was honestly long overdue, and it opens up the eyes of a lot of people. I mean, look at all the stories from all the women in Hollywood about how they were exploited, and how many people's minds have changed about how that industry works, and all the inner workings of it. And how especially young inexperienced women are treated on set. How many people that never crossed their mind how exploitative it was, and now they're like, oh my god, that's disgusting, these scumbags got to change, and people will never view them the same. Like Harvey Weinstein, his career is over, right? Nobody got to respect him. And there's massive amounts of others that haven't been called out yet. But that's the nice thing about integrity. Like some of those women, I'm sure, speaking out, they hurt their careers. They're not getting the roles that they would have gotten if they would have kept their mouths shut. And I'm sure a good bit of them don't care. Just like with our integrity, there's a point where some things are more important. Like if something bad happens to you, don't take a payout and never speak about it. If it happened to you, you got to know it's going to happen to somebody else. So for integrity like ours, instead of taking a payout, we would speak out and ensure things change, so something of that nature never happens to somebody else. Like on a personal note, in my previous video, I touched upon what happened to me, in a professional paramilitary fire academy last year. And I spoke out, and it's still, it's heading to civil court, and there's still stuff to be done. But already, just by speaking out and having that internal investigation, things have already changed in all the fire departments in that metropolitan area, like procedures about how recruits can be treated and the conduct of instructors. Like one of the good instructors I had, who's one of my witnesses, said, he's like, I know you lost your dream job and you lost your apartment, he said, but and there's still, it's going to get worse before it gets better. He's like, but one thing you've already achieved is, you have to hold your head high and know that nobody's going to be put through what you were put through, that you stopped that from happening. And he told the current recruits about it. And a couple even contacted me, because within that department, my story's common knowledge. And I'm glad that, there's another 25 recruits in the academy now, and none of them are being treated the way I and a few others were treated. So that's something. And that's something that we as empaths take great value in. We're very empathic. We can feel other people's emotions. It's a great thing, and it's a burden too. But that's how we are. So if we can feel somebody else's pain and how they were exploited, not only would we want to help that person, but it's like, oh, the person who did that to them has probably done it before, and they'll continue to do it again. So I got to find a way to call this person out in a way that can force change for the better. Again, we don't just accept the status quo. We're idealists. We're always looking to make things the way it should be. Like it's the civil rights movement. That was led by people of integrity like us. Martin Luther King Jr. Most people say he was an ENFJ. Some says he was an INFJ. But either way, he's one of us. Gandhi was one of us. Jimmy Carter, who did make some positive changes in the Middle East, was the closest president ever to get towards peace in the Middle East. He's one of us. As I mentioned before, Amelia Clark, who spoke out about her treatment on the set of Game of Thrones in season one. She helped forever change her industry. She's an ENFJ. I'm trying to, there's another one I can't remember at the moment. It's another Gandhi type person. Oh, Nelson Mandela. Look, he ended apartheid in South Africa. He's an INFJ. So, and he was locked up. He got, one of the worst. His integrity cost him the most of many. Like, look at what it cost him. But that's the kind of people we are. We're not the kind of people, even if we stay silent in the moment, like what was happening to me at the fire department, I had to sit back and gather enough evidence so I'd be able to speak out and cause change. We're planners too, so we won't just speak out like in the moment to save ourselves, to make sure that what's happening to us will stop happening to us, but maybe things will probably never change, and as soon as we're not there to see what's going on, things will go back to normal. No, we'll sit there and we'll make sure other people see what's going on. We'll try to talk to other people who have stronger integrity and see if they understand, or we'll use our empathic natures to sympathize with others who are maybe too afraid or intimidated not to speak up, and we'll plan. And then when we know the time is right to call it out, when we have enough proof and enough people to speak out to cause that permanent change, that's when we'll do it. And that's what makes INFJs, and particularly ENFJs, because you're more charismatic, really great leaders. Is we're empathic people who genuinely care about people. We don't want power for power's sake. We're not motivated by wealth and fame. We're motivated by deep emotional connections primarily. And we have the strongest integrity. So when you think of the price of your integrity, think about, all the people like us that, their integrity was a detriment to them. But look at what good came out of them holding on to that integrity and still doing the right thing, even when it cost them either their freedom, it cost them, perhaps, their life. Were they exiled from their country? Were they not, perhaps not getting the big movie roles they once got? Like me, did they lose their dream job and are probably going to get blackballed by the union that controls all the jobs in that industry in the United States and Canada? Yeah, probably. But even knowing that, I'm still going forward with the lawsuit because I want that change that happened in the metropolitan area that I was in to echo across the union. I don't want any firefighter to ever have to go through what I went through. And if that means, speaking out and that information echoing across the IAFF, which is the union, the firefighters union in the US and Canada, and me being blackballed by the Good Old Boys Network and the whole union, because the person I'm speaking out against primarily has a lot of family all over the place, high up in the union. It's still worth it to me. And that's my dream job. And that's literally all I had. Because all I wanted in life was to help people and have a job where I can do that and have, be around people I trust and they feel like family, and the fire departments, all those things. And it had the intellectual aspect and the physical aspect, and it was great. It's nothing I wanted more since I was 18. All I wanted was that dream job and my dream girl, and that's a video in itself about all the characteristics there. But short of it, I will say, I'm pretty sure my dream girl would be an ENFJ. It seems to be the type I'm most drawn to, and they understand me pretty well. Sadly, they're rare. Yeah, there's that. But my point about that is I have nothing, well, neither of the two things I wanted most in my life. And I had one, and now I lost it because of my integrity. And that's fine. It's not lost forever. I mean, the nice thing about being a firefighter is a firefighter is a firefighter the world over. So even if the IAFF blackballs me, that just means, it's time to move again. I moved to Canada once, but that's the same union. So realistically, there's Ireland and the UK. A firefighter is a firefighter. However, it must be an English-speaking country. There are language barriers, and I only speak English fluently because I'm American, and we're not big on teaching other languages. You come here, you speak American. Yeah. I don't believe that, but that's the culture I was raised in the 90s and early 2000s. So for anybody who took the time to listen to this one, I'm sorry I rambled on a little bit, but I wanted to give some examples that people would be able to see or look up and relate to and be like, wow, yeah, if not for that person's integrity, this serious change that needed to happen that ended, people being treated a different way because of the way they look, people being, able to be exploited and paid less just because they were female. All of those, if those people didn't continue to speak out knowing that it would hurt them in their lives in some way, that change wouldn't have happened. And that's why I remind you, INFJs and ENFJs, to hold on to your integrity at all costs and to keep speaking out. Because even if we have to take the hit personally, the change that comes from us speaking out when it's to our own detriment echoes across and and will cause way more good than the harm that ever comes to us. So if anybody has specific examples they'd like to add, please leave comments below. If there's any topics that I've spoken here that anybody would like to elaborate on, comment below. I thank you all for listening, and I'll see you next time.